Football podcast.
There we go.
There we go. Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Panther New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined live by my co-host Nick Falato.
I was double live, actually. Double live.
Double live. I was in the area after a beautiful first tee time out there, early morning round with my buddies from New York. Great round. We won match play, Nick, on hole 18. Me and my boy, Evan Rubin, went into 18 all tied up, match play. Friend John Kersner, 10 handicap, was giving me strokes. So I had one on 18.
He was giving you strokes. That's fun.
Strokes. Yeah, you love that.
Yeah.
And we won 18. Not a pretty 18. I'll say that. I doubled and I won because John doubled too, but I was getting a stroke. So it is what it is. The handicap system is what it is. But we're talking Giants football today. We're talking first preseason game. We're back. I'm glad to be in the area. Came over here. We watched back some plays that we loved from the game. It was an exciting game. I think there's a lot of optimism around the Giants, and some of the reasons were from some of the things we saw today. So I'll start with you, Nick. I think the first talking point for me, at least, is going to be not what people are expecting here, and we'll get to Jackson Dart, we'll get to Abdul Carter. For me, and I have this in my notes, and I wrote it down, and I circled it more than a few times. For me, I feel, and this dates back to what we saw in 2022 over the course of the season, and then last season in 2024, I have a lot of respect for the way that Brian Daboll sees an offense. And Jackson Dart talked about that this week in an interview. He said, I love working with Daboll. It's the best coach I could have had. He sees the field well. But I think Mike Kafka has a better feel for play calling. And I think it was obvious in this game, and I think it was obvious in 2022. When he calls those screens, the timing of those screen calls was really perfect in this game and generated 2 first downs on 3rd and longs that would have been punt situations for the Giants. And I'm excited about this offense moving forward, not just with Jackson Dart and with Russell Wilson, but with Mike Kafka at the helm. I think he calls a better game. I think he has a better feel for what to call and when.
He may. And even if he doesn't, it's just operationally, it makes a lot more sense, right, Dan, to have your offensive coordinator call the plays and have your head coach focus on the entire ensemble, everything that is going on, the offense, the defense, time management, all that bullshit, right? And he can have his input and he can call some situational plays if he wants to, because guess what? He's the head coach. Right. But that's not his primary focus. Like, there's so much that goes into calling plays. I don't want my head coach to hyper focus on that. And then you have all of these other operational errors. Even if the Giants have this massive coaching staff, which we remember when Daboll came in, I think his second season, they started hiring a bunch of analytical guys, people who are in the box. I fully support that. That's all well and good. Look, John Mara can put money into that, but I want my offensive coordinator to focus on just calling the plays and getting the best product out there from that perspective. And I think it's difficult to do that when you're the head coach because you have so much other shit on your plate.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think generally speaking, we've seen some struggles with Daboll in his play calling with Buffalo, and Bills fans have talked about that. When it comes to Kafka, he's had a few opportunities with the Giants, really only 2022 and I guess 2023 as well. But that was some injuries, and obviously the quarterback situation was a nightmare. And even with Taylor, and they've moved the offense, but I just feel like he knows when to make the right calls. Those screen calls specifically really stood out to me. Let's move it back, though, to the beginning of the game, and let's talk about Russell Wilson and the first-team offense. What are some of your takeaways from the first drive? I have a few that I wanted to go over with you.
Yeah, man, it was fun to watch him. Look, they weren't rewriting anything play-wise. You had the end around, you had some play action, you had some nice runs. I like the play actions. You had a couple like rollouts, just get the football out. Russell Wilson's very good at, okay, I don't have what I want deep. Let me just dump the football down. I'm not going to try to wait. I see that they're sinking to depth and they're giving me this. It's 2nd and 10. Let's get 4 at least and then set up a 3rd and manageable situation. You could see from a processing standpoint, Russell Wilson even has those rudimentary types of skill sets when it comes to playing quarterback under his belt. And but the penalties, dude, the penalties, like this is the story of this training camp is the Giants can't get out of their own way. Look, the Giants aren't a good enough football team to go out there and beat teams off their own merit. Now, I think they are much better this year, and I think maybe they could disprove that this season, but you can't be beating yourselves. Right. That's what bad football teams do. So you have to fix that. And luckily, it's been James Hudson a lot throughout training camp, and it was James Hudson twice on that first drive today. And James Hudson, knocking on wood, should not see the football field if the Giants are healthy. And let's just hope it's Jermaine Illuminor and Andrew Thomas starting for the Giants when week 1 rolls around.
And you nailed it, because I saw what you said on Twitter. You said that drive was stalled because of that James Hudson penalty. And they were moving the ball well. And hopefully in the regular season, obviously that won't be an issue. We hope at least, because it'll be Andrew Thomas out there and not James Hudson. And James Hudson's playing for the Giants. It's probably not going to be the season we hoped. But some other things I saw from the first team offense, I thought overall the offensive line played pretty well. And now part of that is what you said. Russell Wilson is an actual, real quarterback, and he can get the ball out and he works through his progressions and he checks it down. Now that's good and bad. I'll say that, Nick. I think we're going to have some frustrating drives this season where we think that Russ gets the check down a little too fast. And that's something that Steelers fans argued about or complained about as well. And that's just part of his game right now. He looked a lot like I thought I saw, at least from what I've been tracking in training camp. In training camp, when we looked over the stats, and Neighbors wasn't out there, mind you. So that's a key factor. If Neighbors is out there, he's going to be more aggressive.
Neither was Darius.
And neither was Darius. That would change his aggressiveness as a quarterback. But throughout training camp, we've seen Neighbors lead the team in targets and Tracy second. So there's been a lot of checks to the running backs. And I think that's just him getting through his progressions and wanting to take a solution. But what I did love was there was an opportunity for a free release on the outside for Wan'Dale Robinson, a player who's been in our lives, knowing Wan'Dale Robinson since they drafted him, it's just been, here's the Daniel Jones's guy who runs the pivot route or the return route and just hit him, and that's it. There's guys converging on him. He ran a free release on the outside, had the ability to break back to the quarterback, has that natural talent. That's something that we knew he had from watching his film, but he can create that separation on the outside, come back to the quarterback, and make a big play like he made. And I thought that was a really good play by Wan'Dale and good timing by Russ.
Yeah, very fluid. And it's not really a surprise. He just ate into the cushion. It was kind of like a soft leverage. It wasn't press, ate into the cushion, got the cornerback to flip his hips, and then he just broke it right back towards the sidelines. Russ and Jackson Dart for that matter. They were, and we'll get to that in a little bit. They were on time and they were in rhythm. The offense looked functional.
It did look functional.
I mean, it's crazy when you think about it.
Preseason, but it looked functional.
Yes, preseason, of course. The Giants put up 34 points.
Yeah.
When's the last time the Giants put up over 30 points in a preseason? I don't think they did last year at all. They sucked last year in the preseason.
Yeah, we had a lot of those 16-point games.
I think they scored 3 points against the Jets or the Texans. I think 10 in the other one, and then 16, I think, because they beat the Lions, I think, in that one. And the previous year, I think they had a 20-pointer, and we were like, oh, we got 20 points.
Yeah.
But this was a 34-point effort by the New York Giants. Again, it's the preseason, but with Jackson Dart at the helm, first time in the NFL, it looked respectable. Was it perfect? No. And we'll get to that actually in a little bit. I still want to focus on this first team offense because it's really important. Theo Johnson and Tyrone Tracy Jr. both had significant roles. They had a 4th and 1. I'm glad Dabo went for it. You do that in the preseason. You set that tone. You set that standard. And then with Theo, on a lot of those play actions, he just blocks for a second and then he just releases in the opposite direction. The dude is freaking mad. The Giants have basketball players playing tight end for them. We saw a box out touchdown from Thomas Fedone the second. A talent. Yeah, absolutely. And Theo looked gigantic on that first drive as well.
Yeah, I like our talent at tight end. I've tweeted about this before. Yeah. It's a lot of fans around the NFL, I think, just look at the Giants depth chart and this is a bad tight end group. And I look at it and I'm like, actually, it's kind of all pick your own flavor tight end group. Theo Johnson and Fedone have that size advantage over a lot of people and can move well for their size. You have Manhurts who does his role. Honestly, and we'll get to this when we talk a little bit more Dart, but Dulcich had the first 2 Jackson Dart targets, and Dulcich is a guy that we liked a lot coming out of college. I don't know what's left and what his role is and if he even has a spot on this roster, but I like the way that he moved out there, and I've always liked the way that he's moved on tape, Greg Dulcich. He was a player who I actually had as tight end 1 in that class. I was wrong. You had McBride correctly, but I had Dulcich as my tight end 1 in that class, and obviously injuries have kind of derailed his career. He never had a fit. But yeah, first team offense, I did think they did. I would say it was probably our worst group from a run standpoint. I thought we got more going when we had Jackson Dart and Dante Miller. I think Nick's tweeting out the link. Everybody can please join. Please leave a comment, write a message, and hit the like button. Get us going on these live streams. 178 people now live. Try to get that number up. Let's try to talk more Giants football. But yeah, man, I thought overall the offensive line held its own more in the pass game than the run game. I think that's the story of the Giants offensive line as it's built today, at least with the first team.
Yeah, I agree. And there was no Evan Neal in this game. It was Greg Van Roten that ended up playing. Right. There were Duggan did a great job tweeting out all the guys he did not see out there. Evan Neal was one of them, and Greg Van Roten was back since his child has been born. Right. The offensive line, I was pleased with them other than the James Hudson penalty. I can't believe the Giants paid $6 million. It's not great. It's not great. It doesn't look great, Dan.
I think what happened with James Hudson and why the Giants paid him is one, and I've heard Carl Banks talk about this. They love his attitude. He brings this mean streak, right? And he's athletic and he looks the part. And I think they looked at it last year we got ourselves in a really bad position when we had to play Josh Azudu at tackle. Let's go to Hudson. I mean, when we look around the NFL, Nick, were there any swing tackle options who were paid in that Hudson range that we would have preferred? The answer is probably no. I'd have to look at it to know for sure, but I doubt you can find anything at swing tackle.
It's just crazy, and it really goes to I think show how much of a value Jermaine Illuminor was in the previous season.
Insane.
It was like what, 1 million more,
Yeah,
I think. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I think it was 2 years, 14 million is what he signed for. Yeah.
Just a steal. The Illuminor thing fell right into our lap because obviously he came over with Carmen Brasillo. That's just something that you get. And obviously I think coming from Vegas with the Raiders, he had a little bit less appeal on the free agent market for whatever reason. No one thought they should give him a starting role, and the Giants were willing to give him an opportunity. Though I wonder at the time if they even thought they were bringing him in to start. Maybe they thought they were bringing him to start at right guard, but I don't think they thought they'd ever have their potentially future right tackle, and we'll see where that goes this year.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even know if the Giants felt like Josh Azudu could have been that guy.
Yeah,
previously
Azudu
too.
Thing's very weird in general.
I don't think that situation was handled all that well.
No, and he's still playing tackle out there today. Let's move to the first team defense because obviously there's only one series for the first team offense. Give me your first takeaways from the first team defense.
Dude, they get pressure like crazy. What was it? Kudos to Dougie Analytics. I think he was the first to tweet this. Checking next gen stats and PFF. Abdul Carter had six plays out there. That's not a lot, but that's fine, right? 3 of them were pass rushing, and he earned a pressure and a hurry on all 3 of those.
Crazy.
Yes. And some of the alignments that were used by Shane Bowen, putting Abdul Carter way out there and then having a 1 tech to his side and then a defensive player right in the B gap with Brian Burns as a 6 technique over the tight end. The tight end was releasing. I think it was a 3rd down play. Yeah. So they had to pull the guard from the backside since I believe it was just a 5-man protection to block Brian Burns, leaving Deion Dawkins isolated against Abdul Carter, who was split way out there. So Abdul Carter had a 2-way go against Deion Dawkins. That's such a tough place to be in as an offensive tackle. And Carter just crashed in the pocket, flushed Trubisky out. And I think Trubisky completed that throw, right? Yeah, that was a really nice play by Mitch Trubisky and the wide receiver. I'm forgetting exactly who that was. But the guy is just absolutely dangerous. And you know, I just feel like we've already said all these things, like, right? I just can't wait to see more of it because he's such a difficult dude to block.
We've said these things, but it's one thing to say them, and it's another thing to see them in practice happening when it's kind of like, you know, practice. Let's be honest. We've seen a lot of our quarterbacks play well in practice. It hasn't carried over. But then it's another thing to see it in the games. Like, to me, this pass rush lived up to all the hype I had for them. Without Dexter on the field, every single rep. And again, I love how you mentioned Deion Dawkins was on the field. He's one of the better left tackles in the NFL, especially from a pass protection standpoint. And all the hype that I built in my head for this Giants pass rush and what they can do when it's an obvious passing down was pretty much paid off on all those snaps, for me at least. Now I want to see it over and over again, obviously not just one small sample size, but like, this is what I built up in my head, a team that's really difficult. Even Roy Robertson Harris, I thought, did a great job of getting pressure himself. And that, you know, we kind of were like, maybe he'll be a solution for our run defense. I don't think that's going to happen, but he's going to be a better pass rushing option we've had on the interior probably than really anyone last year.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that so far. It's early with Roy Robertson Harris. He looked good out there today. I felt like the first team defense looked exceptional, all things considered. It's very interesting what the Giants chose to do with Deontay Banks. Yeah. I think it's very telling that they're making Deontay Banks earn the starting spot, even though Cordell Flott is out right now with an injury, and they might not trust Deontay Banks to really seize that opportunity. I can't really blame them. Right. He needs every rep he can get. And even on the play where he later in the game where he squeezed that wide receiver off, that was good positioning. And I was saying at the time, I'm like, that's a good position, but he just can't locate the freaking football at all. Like, he can't do anything. It's very odd at this point. He's one of the worst I've ever seen at it for a starting cornerback perspective, but he's damn sticky in coverage. But yeah, first team defense, they're going to be able to get after it, dude. It's going to be really exciting to watch what they can do against Jaden Daniels in Washington. And again, that's without Dexter Lawrence today. Right. And also the Micah McFadden play I loved. Great play. Great recognition. Great stick. And it wasn't the best throw by Mitchell Trubisky. It forced Ray Davis to turn around. But the thing I love most about it was the Bills ran a route right at Micah McFadden. They ran a route at Micah McFadden to be the eye candy for Micah McFadden and to force Micah McFadden to work over top or underneath that, to put that decision in Micah McFadden's mind, like, oh shit, I have to work somehow around this trash. And he calmly worked over the top and then exploded through the catch point to force that incomplete pass. That was a really good play by Micah.
Excellent recognition. He played so much faster, Micah McFadden, last season, I thought. And I feel like that speed, just the game has slowed down to him to a point where he's maximizing his athletic ability. And obviously it's capped to some extent versus some of these other linebackers in the NFL, but he is playing so fast and so confidently, I think. And I thought he took a big step last year. He was one of our best defenders, honestly. Like, if we go back and look at our film grades from last year, if we just had the time to go back through all 17 of our all 22 defense, I bet you we would think that outside of the obvious names, he'd be the most consistent player outside of Dex, outside of Burns, who was playing hurt as well. He might have been the most consistent defender last year. He was more consistent than Okereke for sure last season, at least. Obviously, it was a little bit of a rough year for him.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that too. I think it's just been a steady drumbeat for Micah McFadden, really since his second season. I think it was against the Cardinals where he had a couple nice. I remember being at the Cardinals game and I tweeted something. I have to look it up. Yo, Micah McFadden looked great, and everyone's like, "Yo, he missed that. He missed a big tackle," and everyone was kind of like pouring on Micah McFadden. But I was like, "Dude, well, he had a lot of like solid play." Then throughout that season, he missed a lot of tackles, but last year he calmed that down. He's more of a sure tackler at this point, and he's entering a contract season. And the Giants do have players they like in the building, like Darius Muasau, who Brian Dable praised last week in one of his press conferences. So I'm interested to see if the Giants want to retain a talent like Micah McFadden. Me personally, I would love to. I like him as a player, and I think he fits in well. But also, I want to say this while also saying I think this year he has to prove that because this is only his second year in Shane Bowen's defense.
Right. I think if the steady drumbeat continues as it has with him, he should 100% be a player. Nick's going to jump out for a second. Phoenix Nick's dog is a little ramped up because I came in here. He hasn't seen me in a while, and we were playing outside. We got him all ramped up. But my thoughts on Micah is he's the exact type of player that you do re-sign. Reasons being, 1, he's an awesome player for your locker room and for your culture. 2, he's a player who's ascending and playing good football. 3, he does all the little things right. 4, he's not going to cost that much to re-sign. 5, the Giants salary cap situation. We need to be re-signing any players of our own who are playing good football. Look at all these top teams that are in contention. They're still signing players, the Chiefs, the Eagles, because the salary cap is fugazi. We've talked about this before. Unless you're paying a quarterback crazy amount of money, you don't even have to worry about it, essentially. Even then, you can maneuver around it. So a player like McFadden 100% deserves to be re-signed. And my last point on that, the 6th point on why I would re-sign him, would be something we'll talk about in a little bit of time, which is that second-team run defense and both the first and second level. Very ugly. We're not going to get to that right now because I want to talk about something you mentioned before we got on McFadden. And I have notes on this from the second half, and that's Deontay Banks. So in the second half, Giants GM Joe Shane joined Carl Banks and Bob Papa in the studio or wherever they're recording from, and mentioned that they say, Carl's like, your first team defense only got 2 series, but Deontay Banks played the whole first half. Kind of what was that about? And Shane said he's in a battle with Cordell Flott. So that's the first admission that this is a real battle. We knew that anyway from following training camp, but now we know it's an actual battle here between Cordell Flott, who's injured, and Deontay Banks. But then there was another play in the first half where Deontay Banks gave up a catch, and Carl Banks said on air, I didn't like his body language after giving up that catch. It was just something that stuck out to me because that was an issue for Banks last year, bad body language on the field.
Yeah, he's the Jay Cutler of cornerbacks, man. That's
not good.
Yeah, no, it's not a great thing to be, right? And he's not nearly as talented as Jay Cutler was as a quarterback right now. Again, he has all the physical traits to be a good cornerback, but there's so much more. There's the mental side. I don't want to weigh in on someone's mental state. Look, I'm not a freaking psychologist. I don't know shit, right? But at the same time, like, it does seem like he becomes despondent if he gives up a catch, especially if he's in good coverage. And I need you to just be a little bit more thicker skinned as a professional athlete in those situations to be able to bounce back. That's one of the core traits of any good cornerback is being resilient and being able to understand, okay, I lost that one, I'm going to win the next one, right? And I feel like he's lacked that, and that's not something that I felt like he lacked in college or during his rookie season either. It really was last year, and now we saw it a little bit here in this first preseason game. But also, man, it might just have to do with the fact that he knows his job is on the line, and like every little mistake is going to be hyper evaluated, rightfully so.
Yeah, when it comes to Banks, I think you made an excellent point there. He wasn't like this in his rookie season. The confidence has seemed to go away for him. And that kind of mental fortitude and toughness is important for any athlete in any sport, honestly. But I think it's even more important for corner because it's such a difficult position to play and you're at a disadvantage on every play. And that's why the best corners in the NFL, they're so few and far in between. They're the Surtain types because even guys that we think at times are the best, Jair Alexander, then has a step back season. Marcus Humphrey then has a step back, or Marlon Humphrey then has a step back for the season. And you're like, wait, I thought these guys were top corners. And it's like, they had a bad year. It's because they lost their confidence for that year. It's a tough position to play. Banks doesn't have that confidence. Like you said, sadly, I kind of agree with your take, which is really hard to fathom, but he may be the worst I've ever seen at locating the football in the air, which in my opinion is basically a non-negotiable for a corner because they didn't throw the flag. And I think the good news is on that rep, in my mind, the pass rush was so efficient that it didn't give the quarterback time to throw a decently located football. So it kind of didn't really matter. And like you said, Banks did a good job of squeezing them to the sideline. But there will be times where we get hit with pass interference in those spots, and it's just going to be bad. And I want to give a shout out real quick to Peter Pasquarelli in the comments. He said a couple things we're going to talk about in a little bit. Dan, you can put that one up there. Dan, how chubbed up were you when Dart changed his arm slot to get that
full 3.9, baby?
You have no idea. And by 3.9, he means 3.6. I don't get the 3.9, but I have it in my notes, Peter. So we're going to talk about it in a second. That's a noteworthy play for me for a multitude of reasons. Also, your second comment, and we'll get back into this real quick. 37th and Ditmars, go to Alba's and get yourself a couple slices for the trip back to Jersey. Not a bad idea. With that said, Peter, and it's so funny because I'm hanging out at Nick's right now. He literally lives like a few blocks up from where I lived when I lived in Astoria. I was down there by the subway line on 31st. He's up at, I shouldn't even say, yeah, no, I don't care where I say where I used to live, but Nick is somewhere near here for all the crazies out there. Now you got some details on that. But as far as your suggestion goes, Peter, we're going to get back in football in a second. If I'm going to go for slices at the end of this, I got to be honest, I'm probably going to my main spot, which is, wow, am I forgetting the name? Rosario's. I'm going to Rosario's. If I'm going for slice, I'm going to Rosario's always when I'm in this area. And I might do that.
We're probably, well, I think we should go for shared slices. Yes, yeah. Rosario sounds great. And you know what? I've walked into Rosario's, and this little side note, about 4 times. I look at the menu, I look at the line, and I just go, nice. And I just walk out. I haven't gotten anything there yet.
It's a lot more popular than it was when I lived here. Like, it wasn't as popular. I could just go in all the time. I used to work downtown in Tribeca at a bar, and I would get slices every time before. But yeah.
Yeah, no. So back to this game, though. Do we want to start talking about the one Mr. Jackson Dart?
It's time to talk about Dart. Yeah. So let me get your thoughts on him to start.
Yeah, dude. So look, I think it was an exception. I think it was a solid outing, right? It wasn't perfect, right? No. There were certain plays where it looked like he didn't have an answer. So what did he do? He tucked it and run. I'm fine with that, dude. If you don't like, he didn't look overwhelmed at all. He didn't make he wasn't precise with his ball placement all the time. I think the one Montrell Williams or Washington drop was a little bit to the inside. He airmailed 2 balls. And I'm starting with the negative because we're about to just absolutely praise and glaze this guy, right? Because that praise and glaze Jackson Dart, baby, let's go. That throw was beautiful to little Jordan Humphrey, standing in the pocket and then just freaking delivering, dude. Gets nailed, and he led little Jordan Humphrey. Little Jordan Humphrey ran underneath it to the point where little Jordan Humphrey had a step on that corner, right? But it wasn't a ton of separation. But the defensive back had no shot of making a play on that football because of the ball placement and the touch that Jackson Dart executed with that throw, man. So I come away very pleased. I think it was a solid outing. There are little things that he could still work on, but yeah, no, he balled today.
Yeah, he definitely played really well, I thought. Obviously, in the comments, Darren Cook says solid would be a good description. Let's not go nuts. I think it was better than solid because I think he was comfortable. I think he was calm. He was poised. He got the ball out really quickly. And that's the thing that I've always liked with Dart. And in addition to that little Jordan Humphrey fill, which was an absolute dime of a touchdown pass, in addition, like you said, he's getting hit and he's still putting the ball out in front. But there were a couple other throws that really stood out to me and a couple runs that really stood out to me. I have them in the notes here. Obviously, the 3rd and 12 screen, and Peter mentioned it earlier, but that screen pass was just something that really clicked for me, Nick, because I've seen so many screens, and I'm not just going to bury the last guy, Jones. I'll put Eli in that as well, who didn't throw the best screen pass, and it's part of why we had such an inefficient screen game, where I see a screen attempted to be passed, and the DN gets out there, and there's no links. The DN gets his hand up in that lane, either gets bad at the line of scrimmage, or the quarterback kind of double pumps it and then comes off the play and Dart and throws it into the ground. Eli would do that a lot. Dart has the ability to change the trajectory, and he made a perfect touch pass over that defensive end's outreach arm, dropped into turbo. What's the next thing we know that happens? It's a 3rd and 12, and now we have a first down. That never used to happen for us. And those are the types of things that really stand out to me. There was another play he made. I'll let you go up on that first, and then we'll talk about the other thing.
It's that, and it's also his ability to just operate in rhythm on time with the quick game. He had a nice look. This seems simple, but it's not, especially if you're coming from an unconventional offense. He had a quick game, just 1-2, hit little Jordan Humphrey on the screen, perfectly timed, right on the inside number and away from the leverage of the defensive back. Little plays like that I'm excited about. And again, he was not flawless or always precise with that. He did airmail a few, and I'm wondering if some of those were also just like off routes, but I don't think it was a perfect outing. And I think solid is apt. I think solid, maybe slightly above solid, little throws like the one you just broke down though. Like that is something that the Giants have been devoid of for a while. And it seems so simple, but it's not, because what is the number one criteria for a successful screen game is timing. And it was the timing and how he just kind of flowed and how he was just like, okay, Landon Jackson, I believe it was right there. Let's just put it right over top of him. And then Turbo caught it. And if Turbo did a great job getting the first down, and if he cut it back to the outside, could have been even bigger.
I thought the same thing. And I thought Turbo overall looked pretty good. He had a run on a 3rd and short that he was dead to rights in the backfield, made a really good lateral cut to get to the outside, create yardage, and pick up the first down. In general, his explosiveness and his burst is obvious, Dante Turbo Miller. I don't know what his role will be if he gets a spot on this roster, but this Cam Scadaboo injury is helping him for sure. And obviously, we learned from today, you mentioned it earlier, but this is Tracy's backfield. And I think this Scadaboo injury is going to kind of solidify that. He's going to be behind the 8 ball, Cam Scadaboo, going into week 1. And those first team reps will mostly go to first team snaps once we get to regular season week 1. I think will mostly go to Tracy with some Singletary and maybe a little bit of Scadaboo.
Yeah. And Turbo, there was like 2 or 3 runs where I think it was designed for the C, and he goes up there, and then like his speed, it sucks the defense up, and then the defense gets so tight that he just bounced it right outside.
Lateral cuts.
Yeah. And he has the speed and the quickness to accelerate and break angles, even to the short side of the field. So I would like to see a player like that on this roster. I don't know. Well, like Eric Gray's not seeing the field right now because of his injury. You got Cam Scadaboo out, so he's eating up all of these snaps, and he's getting snaps in like the 4th quarter because the only other running back the Giants have that they're going to play there is Jonathan Ward, who they just freaking signed.
Right, played a little bit in the second half, looked okay, but he's not going to make the roster.
No, of course not. He's a camp body.
But I do I'm with you. I hope Turbo does make the roster. I think Dante Turbo Miller offers them a different level of speed, burst, and lateral. I'm going to say agility, but also just acceleration that they don't maybe have. Honestly, when I look through this roster, they don't have it with Tracy. They don't have it with Scadaboo. They're good. They're laterally good and quick and agile. But as far as that burst, it's a different level with Turbo Miller. So I'm excited about that. I thought overall with Dart, he was on time for the most part. Especially, I liked how they kind of worked in some of the concepts I would see him run at Ole Miss, especially just having him out of the gun, running play action out of the gun and getting the ball out really quick with his release. I thought he was poised, calm, and the moment didn't look too big for him, which I've seen with a lot of quarterbacks. But my caveat to that is I felt very similarly about Jones in his preseason, his first preseason. He was very calm, very poised. He had the Cincinnati Bengals game, Jones' preseason game. He looked unbelievable. So to me, these are all things I want to see carry over the regular season before getting too excited about him. But look, those 2 throws, the screen and the touchdown, were absolute dimes, no matter who you ask, when you ask, and how you ask them. I don't care if it's preseason, scrimmage, or the regular season.
Yeah, and he had a couple other throws to Montreal Washington, who had I would say a mixed bag game because he was getting first team reps. They had the end around to Montreal Washington. It seems like Dable and the Giants really like Montreal. He had 6 targets in this game, caught 3 for 60, but he dropped 2 passes and they were both on 3rd down. The one I think is a little bit more on Jackson Dart than probably Montreal Washington, but still a good receiver bails his quarterback out. The quarterback isn't always precise. And then the other one was just like, I felt like good ball placement by Jackson Dart. It was low and away from the defender. Now it's a hard catch, but an NFL receiver catches it. He did not. But the one move that he had on the 29-yard gain that he had, he like split 2 defenders, and it was almost like those 2 defenders like malfunction. Like, okay, am I supposed to tackle this guy? I don't really know what the hell's going on. And then he was able to just accelerate, and you can see his speed and explosiveness. I don't think he did bad for himself. Dalen Cambry, there were some balls that he should have caught. I felt like throughout the game. This receiver battle is still very interesting to me because even players like little Jordan Humphrey, him and Zach Pascal they're the 2 vets, so they were running with the first team without sans Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton. But I don't know. I still think there's a spot possibly for one of these guys. So these next 2 preseason games will be crucial for players like Washington and Cambry. Just you need to secure the football, man. You can't let any opportunity slip through your hands.
Yeah, it's interesting how the Giants will weigh that, right, Nick? Like, do they care about how these players stack up on specials? They feel like they have enough special teams set in place already that they just want to prioritize the best option for them on offense? And if it is, are they going to where are they going to place things like those drops? Because I'll say this, on the one catch he made that you referenced, the 20+ yarder, he took a really unique and interesting path, I thought, to one on the post catch, like after the catch. And I thought that is why those defenders kind of malfunctioned. They kind of thought he was going in a different direction, and he took a direction that normally you won't be able to win the angle to, but he had confidence and he ran it decisively. And then at the end of that run, he almost cut it back inside and turned it into an even bigger play. That's exciting. Like, I think Carl Banks said like he had a little flash. He didn't mention the name. He didn't say he flashed, but he mentioned the name Victor Cruz there from his preseason. He's not Victor Cruz, but I know what he's referring to, that post-catch juice, that like creativity after the catch. I thought he looked the best of the group that you just mentioned, including Gunner, who got a lot of targets as well.
Yeah, Gunner did well in the second half, had the touchdown too. I just love watching Jameis play. Maybe the Victor Cruz reference is because he's wearing 80, just looks like it. Yeah. I understand where he's going with that. Also, not to leave wide receiver, but I just wanted to mention seeing Marcus Bowe, because we talked about the offensive line, some positives, a little bit of negatives as well for Marcus Bowe, but he was playing both left tackle and right tackle. And I just think that is such a tough task to handle as a rookie, let alone a professional, because you're already like, oh wow, I got to deal with speed of these like 30-year-old guys who've been in the league this long coming at me. I'm trying to earn their job, they're trying to earn their jobs, they're trying to dominate me, and now I got to get flipped from both sides. If he can successfully do that, and they already trust him to do that as a rookie this early, I mean, I think that's a step in the right direction, and hopefully this won't be like another Josh Azudu situation. I don't envision that when it comes to the switching, that's specifically what I'm talking about. But Marcus Bowe, he is one of those players where I'm like, is there a shot he could take Hudson's role as that pure swing tackle and, take Stone Forsythe's role, if you want to say that as well, in year one?
It would be exciting if Marcus Bowe takes that swing tackle role in year one. And I think I feel like I'm with you, a mixed bag when it comes to Bowe, but more good than bad, I thought, for sure. And I think his quickness with his feet is going to help him pass pro. My favorite rep of him was a run blocking play, and it wasn't even a Zion run. It was when Jackson Dart, who, by the way, I thought did a great job on this play of resetting the pocket. He was in the pocket. He had a bad location. I've seen quarterbacks panic out of those spots. He took a step back, created some space, and then darted forward, no pun intended, and ran. And I thought Marcus Bowe did a great job of washing down that end on that play. But then there was a play before the touchdown with Dart, which I thought was his worst rep, which kind of flashed the one concern I have with Bowe is the 2nd and 5 where Dart almost got intercepted on the tip pass. And Bowe on that play, I thought got bull rushed a little bit back into Dart's lap. And that's really my only concern with Bowe is he's going to have to play strength to play at the NFL level. Because I think you mentioned this when you went to camp. You said he did look noticeably smaller than a lot of that offensive line group.
He does when he's out there in his pads. And then I saw him at the podium and I was like, yeah, he's still a big guy. No, but yeah, it's all relative, of course. But yeah, man, the second team defense, I tweeted a Michael Scott gif today because the second, right when I heard Bob Papa be like, oh, so Brian Burns and Abdul Carter are off the field and the second team defense is out there. I'm like, oh, let's see what's good. And then next thing I knew, it was a Bills touchdown. Yeah. It was really quick.
That's the other key story of this. I mean, all throughout camp, the Giants' run defense has been an issue. And I thought the run defense, the first team, even though Dexter didn't play, was actually pretty good, held its own for the most part against Ray Davis. And then that second team run defense was just an absolute sieve. I thought that they were bad at the point of attack. And that second level, man, those linebackers are just, Giants really don't, in my opinion, have depth at that position.
I'm not willing to put Darius Muasau in that conversation.
It wasn't Muasau.
Yeah, it was Chris Board.
Next level's Board.
Yeah, and Flanagan Fowles didn't play in this game either. So it was really just Chris Board. It was he had 2 terrible reps. And one was a stiff arm, and I don't even know if it was Ray Davis. It might have been. And but everybody else, I think it was Tremont Fox, if I'm not mistaken. They all executed their role well. Yeah. Like the defense was sound. It's just now it's the defense held up, and it's your job to make this tackle. You're the unblocked defender in the alley. Right. And Chris Board got stiff arm to the ground. Yep. And then I think he had another bad play, and I'll review the film. And
had a missed tackle, if I'm not mistaken, as well, or a bad angle, one of the two.
Yeah, well, there was one play where I think we had like 4 missed tackles. Belton was one of them in that one as well. And that's all got to be cleaned up. And another thing about the second team defense, and I only mention this because if injuries happen, this could affect the first team defense, especially since the Giants don't have proven depth behind the first team. Right. The miscommunications on the back end. You had final seconds. I mean, this is something we saw so much last year. We were bitching about it like crazy. Final seconds, you have that deep post to Shavers or whatever. Yep. That looked like it could have been a blown coverage. And then you have the other one that was a long touchdown. Now, I don't know if Odell Fortune, who has had a solid training camp, and there's some positive buzz around him, if he thought there was a deep fourth defender, if Belton was going to be there, and Belton just took the underneath, and that led to that post being open, the one that was right before the end of the first half. But either way, he opens his hips way too early, and when he wasn't in position to, so he was a little bit undisciplined. You see him turn his hips, and then Shavers just hits him with an inside move, a little arm, and then just goes right off the post, and there's no one in the middle of the field. Like, you can't have that happen. And then the touchdown in the second half, where Nick Jones gets burned. I think Nick Jones expected somebody else to have it. So there's just these miscommunications. And we saw that throughout training camp last year and a little bit during the season as well. And it's just it's something that gives me a little bit of consternation, because we know that this defense, there's a lot of, there needs to be a strong rapport. There's always, you always need a strong rapport when it comes to playing defensive football, but with Shane Bowen specifically, when he wants to run those 2 read coverages up high, you need to really be on the same page with your safeties and your corners and everybody.
It's a great point. And I think it's a great point because it's something that impacted them last season when they lost, because they didn't have a lot of communication on the back end at times. And now I think a lot of that was when they got injured, Nick, and they had to move different bodies in. I still want to see how it looks with their, and thank you to everybody, by the way, who's tuning in. Timothy S., thank you for the donation. Joseph Winograd, we probably missed a few, but we'll get to them as well and some of the super strat questions. But I think the good news on that front is that it wasn't our starters back there. And it wasn't, we still haven't really got to see what I want to see, which is the full 4 back there: Newman, Holland, and I guess Banks, and then Adebo. And until we get that, I'm not going to worry as much. Plus, I just think the pass rush a lot of times will kind of eliminate the worry and concern. Like, I did feel like a few of those reps, man, the pass rush got there so fast, it doesn't really matter what the coverage was.
Dude, Carter just slanting inside, like Carter and Burns. Those were the 2 I was really watching. And every time I was like, their movement skills gave themselves a path into the pocket. Yep. Now, whether it worked, whether the guard peeled off and then helped, and that allowed Roy Robertson Harris to get a pressure, or Nacho to get a pressure, and that's going to be Dexter. Like, I'm excited about that. That's something that we're going to be talking about all season. It's probably the top story when it comes to the New York Giants defense. It's definitely the top story when it comes to them defensively. And this might be the number one thing that the rest of the NFL is talking about when you think about the New York Giants, is this pass rush and their ability to do what we saw on those 6 plays that we saw it with Abdul Carter. And now you factor in Dex, obviously. But you're right. I'm not going to freak out over those miscommunications, but it is something. Because if we're going to be negative, we're going to look at things glass half empty. The Giants, I'm nervous about their secondary a little bit, just because Deontay Banks. Because if Deontay Banks doesn't work out, then you're relying on Cordell, and I'm not really confident in that. And then who we talk about? Nick Jones, like the Trey Hawkins, like that level of.
You're not going to put Drew Phillips on the outside ever. So
Drew's a stud. I have no issue with Drew. And I know you don't either. It's really that second outside corner spot. I just don't know, and I don't trust the depth. And I could see Joe Shane at the end of, if none of these guys really step up and rise to the occasion, they're going to use that number 3 overall priority spot after final cuts waivers, to bring in a corner.
Good point. And that is a big factor for us. We're going to get the option at one of the best players that is cut on final cut down day with that 3rd waiver wire priority. That's a great point. And we have gotten players in the past. Jason Pinnock around that time. That was an excellent addition at the time.
The corner, Nick McLeod too.
McLeod as well. Yeah. So just, you can find, I don't want to say like stars, but you can find some solid pieces there. But you're right. The secondary is an issue as we go into the season. I don't want to say it's not, but I do want to say, like you mentioned it earlier, man, I said the pass rush was everything I hoped it could be. To me, it lived up to the hype. But individually speaking, I thought the coolest parts were some of the things you mentioned, how diverse it could be, like where they line these guys up. We talked all about that. Now we see it. Like that one rep where Carter was lined up so wide on Deion Dawkins. Like when you have Dex on the field also for that snap, like good night to this opposing offensive line at that point. Like this wasn't even the full capability of our pass rush.
Yeah, I wonder how many offenses will have the hubris to actually like employ that. Like they're going to keep their tight ends in to help, especially if you have Dex there and you put Dex at the 1. You're not going to just like the center is going to get a one-on-one matchup, or the guard. No, it would be the center, and then the guard and the tackle would have to block the 3. And I just don't see that happen. And the Giants, they're going to be really smart with how they align the defensive lineman opposite of Dex to dictate a double team on him. Right. And it's going to be on the offense and the offensive line and the protection coach to really devise creative ways to come up with this. And they're going to need extra bodies to do it. You can't just create bodies, but putting Abdul Carter, he's quick enough to close with and get into the freaking pocket from that distance that he was at. Did you see the split?
It's crazy.
The split was wild.
Yeah.
Like Deion Dawkins, that's such a tough, people are giving him shit on Twitter. I'm like, what are you talking? Like that's such a tough spot to be in, blocking a Kayvon Thibodeau, and that's no shot at Kayvon, but let alone an Abdul Carter, just because Abdul is so quick and he has much more lightning speed than a player like Kayvon, who took up wrestling this offseason, and I hope he's finishing them sacks. I don't know if you saw that. That was cool.
No, it was cool. I think they played at the beginning of the broadcast, or maybe at some point in the broadcast. But it's different with Abdul Carter. That's kind of the feeling that we have watching this player. He's really a different level athlete. Like, you can line up Thibodeau there, you can line up Burns there, but it's not going to cause the same amount of stress on the tackle as it is for Carter. He got around so quick, and then he had a rep against a guard where he destroyed a guard, and I was just like, this is, to me, that's still where he's at his best. Like, you put him in that wide 9, he's still probably hard to defend, but there are ways to kind of scheme around it by putting a tight end, like you said, in. But if you just have him lined up over the A or the B gap with Dexter Lawrence over the center there, dude, like, that to me is a nightmare for opposing interior offensive linemen. They do not have the quickness or for Carter or the strength for Dex.
No, absolutely not. And oh, geez, there's the opportunities for Shane Bowen seem endless when it comes to the front. And I'm very excited about that. Not to transition too far away from the defense, and this is a special teams take, so we'll go back to defense and offense. I just wanted to say, since the Giants seem to be tied up with Graham Gano, I'm glad that this dude was consistently kicking 50-plus yard field goals. Now, one went off the upright. He got the luck of the bounce. I'll take it. But he still seems to have the leg post-injury to make 53 with some comfortability.
Completely agree. And we've had few listeners ask us about Gano. Like, is it a bigger concern than we think going into the season? I feel like Gano has been a great kicker. He's just been injured. If he's fully healthy now, I'm not actually worried about advanced age or anything like that when it comes to kicking. Like, a lot of these kickers can play deep into their 30s, and some, Morton Anderson, or what was the dude? Was it Morton? One of the Andersons was playing at like 45.
Yeah, I think he's the isn't Morton Anderson the leader of points scored?
Probably. Played like 70 years in the NFL.
Yeah, no, it's just crazy. And people in the chat are talking about Thomas Fedone. Look, man,
gotta go to him next.
Yeah, look, Greg Dulcich looked good in his little opportunities. He got nailed at the line of scrimmage with that one, but Fedone, man, he's really trying to earn that roster spot. The box out touchdown was exceptional. Yeah. That was a great play. All 4 of our quarterbacks threw a touchdown pass, by the way. That's freaking awesome, dude.
Even DeVito, Cutlets had a nice little drive.
Yeah, no, Cutlets look fine out there. Jameis is always entertaining, but Fedone, not even just with the touchdown. I know he had the false start. He was taken off the field for that, but he also had a few snags over the middle of the field where you just look at him and you say, he looks different. Like, I'm not saying he moves differently or anything like that. Just looking at him out there, his size, his wingspan, how broad his chest is, how he effortlessly just kind of plucks the football out of the air and brings it in and then gets north. He looks like a professional athlete or a professional tight end who also looks different than other tight ends that I've seen. Does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. That's how I felt about Fedone when they drafted him. Remember, just to reiterate this, I know some people have heard this a bunch listening to our pod, but he was the number 1 ranked tight end recruit in his class, above Brock Bowers. You're not going to be that, in my opinion, unless you move different, have a different frame, and people project that. Because when they make those rankings, those recruiting rankings, they're doing it on projection, just like we do with our NFL draft prospects. We're not like, his stats were 40, 100 yards, blah, blah, blah. This means he's good and he's bad. That means, like, otherwise Shedeur Sanders would have been the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. It's not how you do it. You do it on projection. And Fedone, from a projection standpoint, 6'5", 240, big hands, big arms, and like, you see it too on that 2-point conversion. He basically put his hand up to Jameis and was like, just put it up here. I'll make the play on this football. And he does make the play on that football. And I saw it in some of the red zone drills as well. I think, and this is Giant Insider. What's his name again? I know Chris. What's his last name?
Biziangi. It's an
Italian last name. Chris Biziangeno said the Giants feel like they have a steal in Fedone. I think what he means by that when he tweeted that is, from what he's heard from people in the building, the Giants are really high on Fedone behind the scenes, which is a good sign because we know they're high on Theo Johnson. And I feel like they finally have 2 really unique talents at tight end in those 2.
A lot of potential, at least, right? Like, again, just with the sheer size. Now, Theo is special because he's like 270, which is insanely big for a player with his athletic potential. Fedone is like 255, but he's like 6'6", incredible wingspan. And then you have Bellinger, who they love to use in like that utility F tight end type of role. And Chris Manhurst, who's going to be basically their extra offensive lineman. And then it's like, what are you going to do with Dulcich? Is Dulcich going to be a practice squad? Like, that's the real battles between Fedone and Greg Dulcich. And I think I think that's a good place to find yourself. I think that's a better position than having like Jack Stoll, who I liked last year. But these players, I think they have more receiving upside. And neither, I would say, are dominant blockers in Fedone and Dulcich, but I think they can lose slow enough to steal the Mike Mayock phrase.
Sure. And I think that's all you need to do at times when it comes to the blocking game. Though I do think Theo has even more upside just based on his frame.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you agree with that. A few other notes. And by the way, this is pretty cool to see a lot more people joining in as we go. 550 live with us. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be doing these live shows after every real Giants game as well during the regular season. So excited we usually do them after the Sunday night game due to our work schedules, but they'll be going not right after the game, but at night. So keep an eye out for that. And we're going to do more lives as we get from now to the season. I wanted to do one this week. We'll do one next week, Nick, after the joint practices or something like that.
Yeah, I'll be at those joint practices more than likely.
Yeah,
so yeah,
when you get back from there. Yeah. But a couple other notes I just had watching this game on the quarterbacks. One good, one bad. The bad one, man, like it's just crazy. I know it was called back due to an offsides, but it's just crazy how often interceptions find Jameis Winston in his life and his career. Because it's really unique because I think a lot of people have said this from like Dan Duggan tweeted this being at camp. He said, Jameis Winston has the best arm talent I've seen of any Giants quarterback since I started covering this team. And he only got to cover late career Eli. So if he got early Eli, maybe that would have been a debate between him and Winston. But I think ultimately out of what we've had since Eli, it's obvious he has the best arm talent. We even saw that video with Dable. He's like, if any quarterback can hit the crossbar, we're not running whatever it was. And every quarterback misses. Russ, Dart, Tommy, and Jameis hits it because Jameis is a really good thrower of the football. And he anticipates well, too. A few throws today, I watched him, man. I was like, wow, he processes that fast. Even that red zone play where to Fedoni, he looks that side, comes back to the middle, comes back to that. It's like he goes through the progressions fast, too. You would think that should lead to a quarterback who doesn't throw a lot of turnovers, but something goes on in his brain, and he puts the ball in harm's way a lot.
Yeah, I know. I think I know what it is. He has never met a window that he doesn't want to try to fit a football through.
Thinks he can throw everything.
That window can be slightly ajar, and he's like, I got it.
He's really the complete opposite of Daniel Jones. It's so odd. They're just like total polar opposite quarterbacks.
And want to know what's like strange? Bob Papa mentioned how it's I guess unique for Jameis Winston, who was starting last year for an NFL franchise and who was one of the top picks in the draft and all that, right? For him for him to be playing with these UDFAs.
Yeah.
And I think it shows up because you look at his final stats sometimes and you're like, oh, wow, his completion percentage sucks. But it's like, dude, he's delivering dimes to these dudes and they're just not catching them, dude. He's almost too good for them.
He's too good for this team. He's too good to be like, we talked about it, Nick, and I'll be honest, I'll get to my other point on the quarterback in a second, but we talked about the good point. We talked about like the final score and like, wow, the Giants are actually putting up points in the preseason. That's never happened. We scored 16-7, but it's also like, we've never had this kind of talent at quarterback. To have Jameis in your third team, such a huge advantage versus whoever third team we're going to play. All preseason, he's going to be putting up multiple touchdown drives, Jameis Winston, as long as he's playing third team. And then even Dart with the second team is an advantage over a lot of these second quarterbacks. Like you have Dart out there versus Trubisky, you're going to have an advantage with Dart.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not even like factoring in the upside and all that. And like how this is just like, this is learning experiences for Jackson Dart right now. Right. Like Jameis Winston's been in the league for a while. And dude, whenever Jameis tucks it and runs, I can't help but laugh. Yeah. And I'm also like, please get down. Right. But he tries to put his little fake move on. I'm just like, oh, Jameis, man. Like, Jameis was never really fleet.
For Jameis, like I was looking at those training camp videos, I'm like, he lost some weight.
Yeah, absolutely. He's never been fleet of foot though.
No, he's not fleet of foot even when he is in shape. But this actually leads to my next point, by the way. What I love to see, Nick, because when you watch the tape at Ole Miss, you're like
sorry, Russ didn't have a touchdown pass, so that's the one thing. But the three,
Jameis, Tommy, and Dart all had touchdown passes.
And again, I don't want to cut you off, so sorry, but I do have a point on Russ.
Go
all right. Does it look like his arm is definitely taking a kind of like a substantial step back from what we saw last year on tape?
A substantial step back from what we saw on last year on tape. I'm going to want to compare the game film to what I remember from and my cut-ups from the Steelers. I don't want to go just off this broadcast view of it, and I wasn't at training camp, but I will say this. We spoke with Emory Hunt, who's been at camp, and he says there's definitely RPMs off the ball. And are you saying you kind of see that?
Yeah. And I noticed it a little bit at camp, and it's kind of hard to tell. But like even in this game, it's just I'm not worried, but I'm definitely like, okay, we're not probably going to get the velocity that maybe we thought we would be getting when we signed him. And it's not even like he had a ton of RPMs on his balls last year, but but like I do think some of them are dying a little bit. I don't know. Something to monitor throughout preseason.
Because for me, that's a big thing. Quarterback arm down, quarterbacks in general, I'm going to hyperfixate on. And look, he only had 28 yards passing on 7 attempts. That's not great. And I think we're going to have some rough stat lines with Russ against good defense where it's a lot of checkdowns to Tracy or Singletary or Scattaboo. And a lot of times where we're like, this reminds us a little bit Yeah, 2 guys, 1 Mike from the Entertainer taking drugs. I like that. Where it reminds us a little bit of the Jones offense from like early years, like the Garrett Jones offense. Because I think the later years Jones offense were checkdowns, but they weren't to running backs. Remember the year Barkley had like 100 receptions from Jones or something crazy like that? That is what I mean, more of like that version of the Jones offense. Like, I hope it's not like that with Russ. And we'll still have the over-the-top throws occasionally. It's just how often are we have those opportunities in game? That remains to be seen. I'll say this when it comes to Russ. I'm hopeful that this won't impact him to the point where we're struggling as an offense, but I'm not as sold now as I was earlier that Dart won't play this season. I'm open now. My mind is open to a lot of possibilities on the Dart versus Russ front, both from the Russ standpoint and the Dart standpoint, more so than they were a month ago or even 2 weeks ago. I'm just seeing things out there on the field from Dart, and then obviously on the flip side from Russ, that lead me to believe that this isn't as far away as it feels, despite the fact that, yes, Russ is going to get them to the line of scrimmage faster. He's going to have them set. He's going to have them in better pass protection. He's going to have the offensive line playing better. He's going to have the wide receivers running better checks and all the good things we said. Like when Neighbors was like, in practice, I thought that was going to be a man play to beat man. Why isn't he checking out a man? He's still in zone. Doesn't he think they're in zone? And then he finds the solution anyway, Russ.
And that's invaluable, right?
Yeah,
it's invaluable. But like we understood that we were receiving that when we signed
right.
when the Giants signed Russell Wilson. But we also thought maybe he would have a little bit more. Now, again, I'm not gonna overreact here, but I do think it is something that we should monitor. And keep kind of in the back of our minds as Giant fans.
Yeah. And the only reason, by the way, why I'm entertaining that now more so than ever is just the fact that Jackson Dart is fully entrenched as the QB2 on this team. There is no battle with Jameis Winston. He gets basically all the second team reps, and he was the second quarterback out there today. And he more than held his own in this game. 12 of 19 for $154 and a touchdown, and a beautiful dime touchdown, and a beautiful solution on that 3rd and 12 to Deontay Miller, where, yes, it's a good call by Kafka, but I'll tell you what, Nick, 90% of quarterbacks don't make that play. 90% of quarterbacks don't have the ability to put the trajectory and the touch and the loft on that football to get it up and over the top of Landon Jackson, who has long arms. I've seen it too many times in my life watching Giants football. I'm not blaming Jones. This is all the quarterbacks I've watched in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to think too, if Washington holds on to those 2 passes, it's 14 of 19.
Right.
Yeah, right. And the yards.
The one we say is more on Dart.
And they both ended drives. Yeah, the one was definitely more on Dart. I'm not trying to bury Washington. I actually appreciate what I saw from Washington. One thing on Tyrone Tracy.
Yes.
Hold on to the football. I know your knee was down, but come on, man.
Yeah, look, Tracy, fumble issues were big for him last year. And to be honest, the whole team has fumble issues really at the running back position. Scadaboo had him in college. Tracy had him last year. I guess Singletary doesn't have a big fumbling issue, though. Yeah, I think he put a couple on the ground.
Yeah, he put a couple on the ground last year, to the point where we were talking about it.
Yeah, we were talking about it at one point. Obviously, Miller hasn't had a chance to play much, so we don't want to judge him. So, yeah, that's a good point by you, though. Like, that pulled him fast from the lineup last year. Like, Dable does not like that at all. But one point I wanted to make before circling back to it was no, it's all good. When you're talking about Jameis is not the most fleet of foot. I wanted to see if the athleticism, the speed, the acceleration, the ability to move with the football in your hands for Jackson Dart at Ole Miss would translate to the NFL level, because I know how big of a jump it is. It is for every position. It's a big jump, even if you're a center, like John Michael Schmidt's playing against those Big Ten dudes, now playing against the NFL dudes. And so his speed looked good at Ole Miss, I thought, but I was like, let's see at the NFL level. I thought his speed looked good, dude. On his scrambles today, Jackson Dart was covering ground fast, getting upfield. Now, some people said, learn to slide, let's slide. He slid a few times in practice. I feel like he protected himself enough on those runs, personally, for my liking, but we'll see. A lot of people don't like that at all. They won't always slide. But generally speaking, I think he's got really good quickness, and I thought he did a good job of resetting the pocket multiple times and not panicking in those situations as well. So I thought his movement skills out there today, both moving forward and laterally, were really good, Jackson Dart.
I agree. On the, what was it, a 19-yard scramble? Yes. On that, believe it was a 1st and 10. Yeah, no, I was like, holy shit, he's cruising there. He's moving. He's getting north and south, baby.
And they had a design run for him, by the way, as well. That's still going to be part of the playbook. No matter who's at quarterback, Tommy DeVito, Table still called the quarterback runs.
Hey, man, keep the defense honest, right? A couple more notes. I wanted to just applaud Deontay Johnson for that freaking tackle at the end of the game.
Phenomenal play.
Phenomenal play, dude.
He's always a preseason darling. Deontay Johnson.
Hey man, what did he appear in 2 games last year at the end of the season after a good training camp? And if you're talking, look, like Chris Board's here for special teams, I don't know if Deontay Johnson's gonna have more value than if he has that value on special teams like a player like that does. But when it just comes to playing defense, I want to see Deontay. Like he looks like a freaking NFL linebacker out there, and he makes plays when he gets out there. And I know this is preseason, but what else are you going to ask for an undrafted guy from Toledo? Correct. You want him to go in. You want him to actually make plays when he's in the football game. And it seems like this kid has done that 2 consecutive seasons now.
No doubt about it. One more thing, and then we'll get to some questions here if we have any. Leave your questions in the chat, and we'll get to it. But one final thing, and you cut it up, I think, Nick, and put it on Twitter. We haven't mentioned it yet. I talked a lot about how I felt like the moment wasn't too big for Jackson Dart, and I really do believe that out there today. He didn't look like getting rid of the football and getting it high. I see that not with any rookie we've had, but just because I thought Jones was good in his first preseason, but just some other rookies out there have looked kind of. And I think the biggest indicator of that and the biggest point of proof we have was the 2-minute drill. He ran that 2-minute drill pretty damn good for the Giants. He moved the ball efficiently. He got them to the line of scrimmage. Everything was on time. The ball was caught. No fumbling the snap, no bobbling, no clunky dropbacks, in and out of his hands on time. That 2-minute drill could have been a bigger, could have even been a touchdown if there was a different situation there. So I thought he ran that 2-minute drill very well. And it's good that he got that situation because they drill those in practice. Here's a red zone day. Here's a 2-minute drill day. And now he finally got some reps in real time.
Couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more with that take. And these should have been more than just a field goal too. I mean, well, he would have to earn the touchdown, but we could have saw more if the Giants executed a little bit better. Right. But when it came to Dart, he looked comfortable. And again, on time, in rhythm, operating the simple concepts well. And that's something that a lot of people were worried about when it came to Jackson Dart, just because, again, he played with Lane Kiffin over there at Ole Miss. But yeah, do we have any more takes from the game? I'm trying to think if we missed anything or if we covered everything at this point.
What are your thoughts on? I think we might have a different evaluation of this. We'll go this, and then we'll end this just because it's the last point I have, and then we'll get to some supers here. I thought the 2nd and 10 pass to Cambry that was kind of like good coverage. I didn't mind the ball location on that. I thought he gave him a chance to actually make a play on it.
Yeah, I think a few of Cambry's targets he should have came down with. Okay. I don't think it was a good. Again, Cambry, he's showing up in training camp, but like I want to say he had like less than 20 catches in college. He was a special teamer, and that's why he would make this team. Raging Cajun.
He was a special team guy, and then it's just made plays in camp, but I have to translate, obviously.
Yeah, what about DJ Davidson getting that sack, baby?
Yeah. Good for him. He needs it, obviously. He's on he's probably on the bubble. All right, let's get to some questions here and wrap up. Let's see what we got here. Appreciate everybody here.
How would you say this?
Cy.
Go Big Blue. Yes.
Brian Day.
Go Big Blue.
Thank you for your donation, Cy.
Appreciate you, Cy. Peter, we already put this up again, talking about Dan's 3.6. Thank you so much, my man, Peter. Now we'll go to Matt Peliquin. Matt, if Dart played poorly, it's concerning. Since he played well, I take it with a grain of salt. Any chance you guys do a live watch along?
Maybe at some point, but unlikely because of both of our work schedules.
Yeah, but we'll keep you guys. We'll keep you guys informed on that. Timothy S. Oh, thank you, Timothy. Really appreciate that, man. You guys are live. We're live, and we're live. So we are here together for those on the pod. I wonder if anybody on the podcast hasn't, because they don't see us.
Yeah.
Dan and I
watch the show and give us a view. If you're listening to the podcast, just click our YouTube occasionally and give us a like and a comment. We need your help. Juice this algorithm up.
Absolutely. Yes, please do that. Joseph Winograd, thank you so much. He said, hey guys, just got here. How are we feeling about Jackson Dart? Thought he had some poise, a few mistakes, but overall I feel positive. I think that would be a good way to summarize Jackson Dart in this game. I
definitely come away feeling positive about Dart after this game. So I think everybody honestly should. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty damn good.
Yes. And A. Randy, thank you so much for the super chat. A. Randy 131 says / asks,
interesting.
Huge fans, guys. Thanks for all you do. Just coming on. If you haven't discussed already, how many completions did Dart have beyond the first read?
We don't. We have to look back. We're going to watch the tape and have a review after we watch the tape, by the way, this week. So we'll have some takeaways from the tape type of show. Maybe, not like our usual post game, but something like a shorter wrap. but we'll look at it then and obviously get a good idea. I don't think from the broadcast I have a good read on that.
Yeah, neither do I. I'm trying to think. I want to say there were some throws to Montreal that Montreal was not the number one read.
Yeah,
but that is but I'm
there was
glad.
a lot of quick game though. Just get the ball out.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely. It was a lot of quick game,
Yeah,
read the safety, and then attack deep if the safety reacted the way he did. And that's, I think, basically what happened with the little Jordan Humphrey. But again, this is why Dan and I don't make any like declarative statements until we really see the film. That's why we're one of the film-based podcasts out here for the New York Giants. And if you're new to listening to this podcast, you'll see during the season, we always go live after the show, as Dan and I are doing right now. But when the film drops, usually the next morning, we grind the film and we take extensive, copious amounts of notes. And then we do 2 podcasts on the offense and the defense based on the all 22 takeaways and what the coaches were trying to do on both sides of the football.
Yep. So that's what you're getting in season. You're going to get a live show after the game on Sunday nights. And then Monday we're grinding, we're watching tape. And Monday night, you're going to get defensive, well, sometimes combined, but a film-based podcast, which you can watch on YouTube. We'll put some tape up there that we can at least. And then obviously you can listen in as well. So thank you to everybody tuning in for that type of stuff, that content for sure. There was a point I wanted to make that I'm now blanking. What were we talking about before that with Dart?
The first read?
Maybe the first read stuff, or maybe coming off the first read. I'll come back to it later. We'll circle back to it. But yeah, anything else on this game before that we might have missed?
No, not right now. I think I think we'll wait. We'll get to the tape, and I just want to thank everybody for joining us. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much to you. What did you say?
You want?
Throw it out there.
Well, did we talk about Dan and I? We're also thinking about possibly getting some merch for this season, and we want to kind of throw some feelers out there to see if anybody would be interested. We've been in talks with certain people to see if we want to get merch going for the podcast, Big Blue Banter, and possibly because a lot of people have asked us, "Hey, we want to send you money. How do we do that?" And since certain streaming platforms like to take a lot of money, Dan and I are also thinking about maybe working in a like a buy me a coffee or something like that, where so we just wanted to gauge interest to see if anybody is interested in that, and more specifically merch. So please let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know if you're interested in buying merch from the pod. Obviously, it would be really helpful for us to support the show, so we would really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we have one more question from Timothy S. He says, current thoughts on DT2.
Yeah.
I think DT2 is Raheem Nunez-Roches.
It is. He didn't play in this game, and I think that pretty much solidifies where.
No, I think he was out there.
No, he was out there with the first team, but he didn't play deep into this game, so I think it solidifies it.
Yeah, it would either be him or Roy Robertson-Harris at this point, I would say, and then we have to wait and see if Darius Alexander comes along, because it's been a little bit slow since he's come back from the whatever injury it was during training or during mini camp and OTAs. But if I were a bet man, I would say Raheem Nunez-Roches with a rotation. I know it's not exciting, but I do think it actually probably is the wisest thing right now until Alexander's up to speed.
Yep. All right. Thank you to everybody who joined in today. Really appreciate all of you joining in on the show. Thank you for going ahead and supporting us by being here today. Thank you for hitting the like button. If you can, please do. It helps us grow the show. I'm already seeing some comments on the merch, so keep that in mind. I appreciate that as well. If that works for you guys, it works for us. And then lastly, please subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel if you have not already, and leave a comment after these live videos to get this going in the algorithm. We really appreciate you guys showing up today. A lot of good people here today, a lot of great comments, and 500 plus is pretty cool, especially for something impromptu like this. So keep it locked and loaded. The vibes are high, as they should be, to be quite honest. Like, things are turning around for this franchise, I hope, at least for my sake and for Nick's sake, and your sake, obviously, as well. So have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.